Alright, guys, so I'm guessing everyone's kind of wondering what happened. Why wasn't this review up a few days ago? I did try to do the review earlier on Twitch, and it just didn't take, and everything was all jacked up. There was no audio, so you couldn't hear anything I was saying, and it really it aggravated me because I didn't want to do it on the phone, but it seems like this is the only way that's working. It's not the best quality of video, but hey, at least I'm getting my content out there. My biggest thing right now is that I'm trying to get back on track here, and now that I've had time to think about the movie and everything, I feel like I can give a better review, right? So this review is a Spider-Man Homecoming. If you can't read, that's what it is. Spider-Man Homecoming review. Okay, I've had a lot of time to think about it and really get my thoughts together on this. Okay, so over the past, I would almost say 10 years, man. Maybe longer than that. We've seen three different versions of Spider-Man. Three different versions of Spider-Man. Now, Tobey Maguire, he did great for his time, and then everyone really judged him when Andrew Garfield came out, because Andrew Garfield's really good for his time as Spider-Man, and now we have Tom Holland. Now, to break down these other two Spider-Men, Tobey Maguire, I liked him. At the time, I liked him. I was also still, like, what, in high school, maybe middle school or something like that? I don't even remember. It's been so long ago. But I was still in school and whatever. It's the first time we could see Spider-Man on the actual big screen, and I was excited for it. So at that time, also, I didn't really look into it that much of what do I not like about this, or whether I was just blind. I even liked the third one for a second, and then when I got a little older, I realized that movie was garbage. Right? Everyone's saying the best one is the second one, and that is true. Um, the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. I like Andrew Garfield. I thought he was great. I was very sad to see him go, but at the same time, everyone's going to have problems with certain things, and I had problems with some of the things in the movie. He did a pretty good job of being Peter Parker, and he did a good job of being Spider-Man, but there was still something about it that was missing. And finally, Tom Holland has embodied Spider-Man. I enjoy him a lot. I'm hoping it's just not one of those things of I'm blinded by my fandom. But I love the way Tom Holland portrayed Spider-Man. Okay? The differences between these three Spider-Man is this. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, they had the origin story, right? So you would expect them to be very inexperienced and not really know what to do. But it was strange how, in their inexperience, they did better than Tom Holland did. Okay? Explain that to me, alright? Is it because, in a way, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man were maybe a little older? That is a possibility. But they all started out in high school, just like it's supposed to, right? And they should have had about the same amount of experience. And the thing that really bothers me about this, the fact that Maguire and Garfield Spider-Man were more experienced, is they've had the powers maybe a few months, maybe, probably not even that long. And here's Tom Holland over here with his Spider-Man having it probably longer than having his powers longer than they did. But he was so inexperienced as a Spider-Man. You could see it throughout the whole movie. He didn't know what he was doing. He tried his best. He's trying to impress. He wants to impress Tony Stark. He wants to be part of the Avengers, and that's the whole reason that you're really seeing in this movie how he's trying to be a better Spider-Man. And that's what really drew me into this one. In the beginning, after they did their little bit to set up the movie of why the villain's doing what he's doing, there was this Sony feel to it, and it bothered me. Because when I felt this Sony feel, all my hopes were just crushed. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be a terrible movie. It just felt too slow in the beginning, just like a Sony movie was. It felt slow. But then I started to look past that a little bit. And I started to look more into what Holland was doing as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. And there was a lot of great actors in this movie. The guy who played Spider-Man's best friend, he was one of the best parts in the movie. You know, he's your comic relief in this movie. You would expect Spider-Man to be the guy, but no, his best friend was probably one of the best parts of the movie. He had some really good lines. He had some really great things to say. He acted like an actual friend would be. You know, in the trailer, you know that he's already finds out that he's Spider-Man, and the way that the actor who plays Ned, Peter Parker's friend, the way he acts is just like how your best friend would act if he found out you had superpowers. He would ask you all these questions. Um, can you so in the movie he asked you, can you control a lot of spiders? Do you spit out venom? Stuff like that, like what a spider would do, right? And he's like, well, how'd you get your powers? And then Peter Parker explains it to him. Got bit by a spider. But that spider's dead. It's not going to happen again. Which is funny because I think the reason they said that is they're no longer wanting to do the origin story, which I enjoyed. I don't want to see the origin story anymore either. It's been beaten to death. Like, nobody wants to see it. But yeah, Ned was one of the great characters in the movie who really helped you to move along in the movie and go, man, that he's a believable character. He's a believable character. Your friend would do the same thing. He would ask you all these questions. Um, one of the other things I loved about this movie was watching Holland get used to his powers. And the crazy thing is that you know you watch the Civil War and you see how awesome he is and how amazing he is, but who's to say that maybe it was just when he's fighting all the guys, they know nothing about him, so he does really well, you know, or whatever. But he just looks amazing in that movie, in Civil War. He had a small cameo. It's great to see him fight all these other superheroes and just whoop on them, and it was crazy. But there is things, because a lot of people, you know, question it, like, why was he able to beat Cap? Well, Cap knew he was a kid, probably didn't want to not punch his lights out, you know. Didn't really want to hurt him, because Captain America's a good guy, right? He's a Boy Scout. He's a Boy Scout, but that's okay. So, watching Holland grow as Spider-Man is going to be fun. It is. You got to see him grow a little bit in this movie, and that was awesome. You got to see him going throughout his life, juggling Spider-Man, juggling his own high school experiences and stuff. Being a teenager with superpowers, could anyone actually imagine what that would be like? Trying to put on a show that you are this guy and all this stuff, trying to, you know, not want to abuse your powers to become popular. You know, you don't want to abuse that power, because with great power comes great responsibility. So, watching him struggle with all these things in his life, and having his best friend sitting there going, you should totally say that you know Spider-Man, and Spider-Man show up at this party so he'd be popular. He does the right thing, though. You know Spider-Man's gonna do the right thing, and it was just fun to watch. Okay, it was really fun to watch. Now, this movie wasn't about a lot about action. It did have some good scenes and all that where they were fighting, but this movie's not all about action, and I feel like that's a good thing. You know, to not have that much action in the Spider-Man movie, I feel like that is in a way kind of a Sony thing to do too. But maybe that's maybe that's the MCU jumping in real quick and saying, "Hey, let's do the Spider-Man different. Let's give him more character." You know, but there hasn't been a lot of action in Spider-Man movies, anyways. And even if you do have a lot of action in Spider-Man movies, it's just too much CGI, and I think they try to get away from that with all the CGI and really focus on Peter Parker, and that's cool. That's cool, but you know, you get to for your focus on Peter Parker and his growth uh, as a man and as Spider-Man, as a hero, and that is what was really great about the movie. The opening part they play, you know, the opening part really was fun. You know, when they do the whole Marvel logo and everything, and they play the Spider-Man song. Now, who doesn't want to go into a Spider-Man movie hearing that song in the very beginning? Not as like a little Easter egg throughout the movie, but seeing it happen like right before the movie starts. That was pretty fun. Now, the thing is that I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10 because I enjoyed Michael Keaton. I enjoyed Michael Keaton as the Vulture. That was new. Having Vulture, someone who is kind of just one of those low down, not low down, but not well known. We'll say not well known, even though I know a lot of people do know about the Vulture. But he's just like a lackey in a way. Like Scorpion, Shocker, and people like that who aren't like these big name villains like the Goblin, Hobgoblin, fucking Doc Ock. He's not a big name villain, okay? And that was interesting to see. Michael Keaton did a fantastic job. He played the Vulture well. Very sinister. It was great. Sinister Six. But he did a really great job. And it was great to see that they do little Easter eggs for some other villains that could possibly pop up again in the new Spider-Man movie that they're going to do after the next Avengers movie. Because Spider-Man will be leading off with the next phase of Marvel. So get ready for that, guys. It's going to be entertaining. It's going to be awesome. So, like I said, the whole movie is all about his growth. And that was fun to see as a Spider-Man fan. Because most of the time when you went and saw a movie, Spider-Man was already this badass. And he was already knew how to use his powers. Yes, they show him struggle for a second to figure out how to use them. But even after they do that, they're amazing. And they're like, oh, I don't have any problems. They do get the crap beat out of them. But in this movie, Holland got the crap beat out of him more than any Spider-Man I've ever seen. And a lot of people didn't like it, but I did. Because he's learning. He's not ready to take on these villains by himself. Because he doesn't know who he is. It's just like he's found his identity. Okay, let's look at it that way. He's trying to find his identity as Spider-Man, and maybe in this movie you're going to find out that in a way it's almost like Tony Stark, and the suit is kind of hindering him because he's not finding out Spider-Man on his own. He's having help, and what I really like about it is watching him find himself in the end of the movie. Okay. I'm not really spoiling much. You know how these movies go. Okay, you know how these movies go. So the last half of the movie is a big fight, and that was great to see. But leading up to it, there was some dry spots. But in the end, this was a great movie. Okay, guys, if you haven't seen Spider-Man, which I can't believe you haven't seen Spider-Man yet, and I've been sitting on this review for a while. I saw it when it first came out. So I give this movie a 9 out of 10, guys. This movie was great. I want to give it a 10 out of 10, but there are small things that really kill it, and I will tell you one. In the beginning, they do an 8 years later thing, and this is after the Avengers, so I want you to think about that. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is supposed to be following our timeline, or staying with us actually, So back in 2012 is when they did the first Avengers movie. Well, 8 years after the Avengers movie, if they went with the way Spider-Man is 2020, which makes no sense because the Civil War happened in 2016 in the cinematic universe. So they messed up. That's a big thing that they messed up on, and that really kills the continuity of the actual timeline. So if they wouldn't have done that, and if they could... No, everything else was pretty straightforward. It was pretty, simple. But that really killed the continuity of everything. So if I gave it a 9.5, I would, but it's just got to be a 9. I want to give it a 10, but I can't. Big Spider-Man fan, but when Marvel messed up like that, trying to bring out an awesome freaking Spider-Man movie, that's not good. You can't do that. You got to stay on point, and that's usually what they do with these movies, but this time they didn't. Now, I was surprised that I didn't see any Infinity Stone, because they almost always show an Infinity Stone. It's probably going to come up in the Thor movie, which I will have a review of that as well when it comes out. But I'm assuming that's why, because they're going to have it in Thor. Who knows? Maybe we've already got them. I didn't see Guardians of the Galaxy 2 yet, so they probably showed one there. So my bad if I'm messing up here. But I hope you enjoyed my little review. I'm trying my best not to spoil anything, and that's always hard when I talk about something I love. But if you want to see this movie, you want to see the development of Spider-Man, watching him struggle, please go see this movie. It's a great movie. Tom Holland has a wonderful performance. He is the Peter Parker in Spider-Man that I've been waiting to see. Don't hate on it, because really, it's a high school student. How would you act if you had powers? Just think about that. How would you act? And it's better. It's better than the other ones. I love Maguire and I love Garfield, but their time is done. It's Holland's time now. Guys, go check out Spider-Man. Like, subscribe the video. Please share it with your friends. Let them see to figure out if they want to go see the movie or not. And last but not least, thank you from the Three Hammers family. This has been Stanley. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Listen strong, listen good. He's got radioactive blood. Can't sleep from a thread to the hood overhead.